Good morning. It is Saturday, February 23rd, 2008. It's about 1:30 p.m. and we are once again here at the corner of 14th and Irving Streets at the heart of Columbia Heights. This is the second week of our video blog, and today we're going to be focusing a little bit more on the history of the neighborhood. We're going to be talking to a local historian and also hopefully to some local residents who have lived through some of the changes that have been happening around here. Now, there's not a whole lot to report that's changed in this actual cross street since last time. There are a couple more signs up on the new complex of the anchor stores that are going to be in there. There's a Lane Bryant sort of small retail store on the street that looks like it's ready to go. But aside from that, there haven't been a whole lot of no new stores have opened yet, as far as we know. So let's go now. We're going to go down and take a walk towards Sticky Fingers, which is a little locally owned bakery that's 2 blocks north of where we are now. And we're going to sit down and talk to a historian.
It turned out that Sticky Fingers was full, so we ended up meeting our historian across the street at Mayorga Lounge and Coffee Shop.
We're sitting here in Mayorga Lounge with Brian Kraft, who is a local historian and is the author of the chapter on Columbia Heights in the forthcoming revision of the book Washington at Home. So we'll hopefully be talking with Brian a little bit about the history of our neighborhood. So Brian, could you start off by telling us where the buildings that are here now have been here for decades, the row houses and stuff, where did those come from? Who lived in them when they first got here?
This was the eastern edge of a neighborhood called Mount Pleasant. That dates all the way back to the very end of the Civil War. It wasn't until the streetcar came up here, again, ending right here at 14th and Park, beginning in 1892, I think was the year. And that's when row house development started. Brick row houses, usually 18 feet long. And that's the architecture that we know now, that we associate now with Columbia Heights. This building, the Tivoli Theater, was completed around 1924, I think. The Riggs Bank branch across the street was completed around 1923. And just these two very, very impressive and imposing buildings were very unusual in suburban neighborhoods. It really reflects the demographics of the neighborhood, the economic class of the people who are there. It's hard for us to go back to the days of segregation and imagine all the way things were done back then. There was a lot of tension along those lines and legal matters along those lines. For instance, around the 1920s and 30s, right up to through the 1940s, where critical mass of white residents looked for ways to keep neighborhoods all white. How that worked in Columbia Heights that neighbors actually sent petitions around where people would sign, and it became a legal document, that they would agree together to never sell their house to a person of color. Because of the changing demographics around 13th Street, this was 1941, and because black folks were moving in that area and all up and down 13th Street. 13th Street had become a dividing line of black on the east side and white on the west side. And his family jumped over 13th Street, and they were taken to court by one or more of their white neighbors, and they actually won the case and stayed. And that case was cited as precedent in the definitive 1948 case that threw out racially restrictive covenants. They were no longer enforceable by law after 1948. So
D.C.?
In D.C. and the whole United States. By 1950, black folks are moving en masse into neighborhoods like west side of Columbia Heights and Mount Pleasant, which was all one up until 1950.
Brian explained to us that throughout these changes, 14th Street was a thriving business district up through the riots of 1968, which followed the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, if you look online, there's a very professional video by a lady named Erin Wildermuth that tells the story of Columbia Heights from those days up until the present. Rather than reinvent the wheel, we put a link to her video on our blog page, and I strongly recommend that you watch it. Now, after talking to Brian, we looked around the neighborhood and tried to find some residents who had lived through the changes Brian had described. Unfortunately, we didn't have much luck.
So how long have you lived in Columbia Heights? Have you lived in Columbia Heights?
About 6 years.
So how long have you lived in Columbia Heights?
3 years.
About 9 months.
While we didn't find any lifelong residents today, we did find one gentleman who had been here since the 80s.
Okay, so how long have you been in Columbia Heights?
Since 1989.
89. Do you like it?
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Pretty nice.
So what was it like when you first moved here?
Well, over on 14th Street at Columbia Heights Station, it was more like, after hours it would really be dead. I noticed that crime has decreased since all of that around here, and seeing more people, more activities.
Right. So you were here before the Metro was here.
Yeah, I was
right?
here way before the Metro.
Okay.
I was here before the Metro.
How'd the Metro change it?
First of all, once the Metro came here, then a lot of business came in, apartments, like you see, those places that's coming up there like Circuit City and up by Columbia Road. So once the station came in, everything came after. That's
right, that kind of
yeah,
started.
You know, that started, yeah.
Okay, so how do you feel about the development that's going on now with Target, Best Buy, and all that?
Well, it's always good to welcome business to Washington, D.C. I've always been shopping in Maryland and Virginia, so I do welcome like business in Washington, D.C. So I think it's a good thing. I really think it's a good thing. Yeah, I think it's a good thing.